Robert has been investing for 11 years. He's got money in 7 different ETFs, and last month he sat down and actually looked at what he owns. Turns out 5 of his 7 funds all hold the same top 10 companies: Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA, over and over again. He thought he was diversified. He wasn't. He was just buying the same stocks in different wrappers. And Robert is not alone. Most people pick ETFs the way they pick restaurants. They hear a name, they see it trending, they throw money at it, and they end up with a pile of overlap instead of a real portfolio. Today, I'm going to show you 8 specific ETFs that you can buy and hold for the next 10 to 20 years. These aren't random picks. Every single one has been verified with current data, and one of them has averaged roughly 24% per year for the last decade. I'll show you exactly which one and the proof behind it. But here's what most people miss. It's not just about picking good funds, it's about how they fit together. By the end of this video, you'll have a complete portfolio blueprint, from the foundation all the way to the growth satellite. Quick note, I'm not a financial advisor or government employee. Everything here is for educational purposes only. For your specific situation, always check with a qualified professional. Let's start with the 2 funds that belong in almost every portfolio on the planet. Fund number 1 is VOO, the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. On June 2nd, 2024, VOO became the first ETF in history to cross $1 trillion in total assets. $1 trillion. That's not a marketing gimmick. That's millions of investors around the world voting with their money over many years. It tracks the 500 largest US companies. It charges just 0.03% in fees. That's $3 a year for every $10,000 you invest. And over the last 10 years, it has returned roughly 15.7% per year. If you do nothing else, VOO alone puts you ahead of most investors. Fund number 2 is VTI, the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF. VTI holds over 3,500 companies. It gives you the same large cap companies as VOO, plus mid cap and small cap companies that VOO misses. Same 0.03% expense ratio, same $3 per year, and a 10-year return of about 15.3%. Think of VOO as the highway. VTI is the highway plus every side road and shortcut. Together, they give you the broadest foundation you can build. But here's the problem with both of them, and almost nobody talks about it. The top 10 companies in the S&P 500 now make up over 40% of the entire index. That's the most top-heavy it has ever been. If those 10 companies stumble, your whole foundation shakes. That's exactly what pick number 3 fixes.
The equalizer. Most people think owning more ETFs means more diversification. Here's the myth. If you own VOO and VTI and QQQ, you're well diversified. Here's the truth. If all your ETFs are cap-weighted, you're just buying the same 10 companies 5 different times. Fund number 3 is RSP, the Invesco S&P 500 Equal Weight ETF. RSP holds the same 500 companies as VOO, but it gives every single company the same weight. Apple gets the same slice as company number 500. No single name dominates. It rebalances every quarter to keep it that way. Now, RSP has returned about 12% per year over the last decade. That's less than VOO's 15.7%, and that's because mega-cap tech stocks have been on a historic run. When the giants lead, equal weight lags, but when those giants stumble, equal weight holds up better. RSP is a deliberate choice. It's your insurance policy against concentration. The expense ratio is 0.20%, $20 per 10,000 invested per year. Not the cheapest, but the protection it adds is worth the price. So now you have 3 funds covering the US market from every angle. Growth and diversification are locked in. But what about income? Because the next fund just went through its biggest shakeup in history, and it came out stronger. The income engine. Smart investors don't just grow their money, they grow income that shows up every quarter without selling a single share. Fund number 4 is SCHD, the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF. It is the most popular dividend ETF in America, and in March of 2026, it went through its largest reconstitution ever. It dropped 22 companies and added 25. It cut its energy exposure from 23.5% down to 16.3%. And the companies it brought in? United Health, Procter & Gamble, Qualcomm. The incoming stocks averaged a 63% 5-year dividend growth rate, nearly double the 37% average of the companies it removed. That's not a random shuffle, that's an upgrade. SCHD charges just 0.06% in fees, $6 per 10,000 invested per year. It yields about 3.45%, and it has delivered roughly 13% in total returns over the last decade. But the real magic is the dividend growth rate, about 10.6% per year over the last 10 years. Let me show you what that means with a real example. Ray and Diane from Michigan. Ray retired at 63 with about $400,000 in his IRA. He put half, $200,000, into SCHD. His first year, that generated roughly $6,900 in dividends. Now here's where it gets interesting. With SCHD's roughly 10% annual dividend growth rate, by year 5, that same $200,000 could be kicking out over $10,000 a year without Ray selling a single share. The principal stays intact, the income keeps rising. That's the power of owning companies that raise their payouts year after year. Before I show you where the real growth lives, drop a comment right now. Which of these ETFs do you already own and which ones are new to you? I read every single one. Now, let me show you the 2 funds responsible for the number on the thumbnail, and one of them just did something that made it 8 times easier to buy.
Where the 24% lives. This chapter delivers. Fund number 5 is VGT, the Vanguard Information Technology ETF. VGT has averaged roughly 24 to 25% per year over the last decade. That figure comes from Yahoo Finance as of May 2026. Vanguard's own official number as of March 31st was 21.44%. The gap exists because the AI-driven spring rally pushed trailing returns higher. Either way, this is the highest returning broad technology ETF available. Let me say that clearly. One ETF on this list turned every $10,000 into roughly $85,000 over the last decade. That's not a promise about the future. That's what already happened. And in April 2026, Vanguard executed an 8-for-1 stock split on VGT. The price dropped from around $712 to about $89 per share. That means anyone can own it now. The expense ratio is just 0.09%, $9 per 10,000 per year. Here's what you should know. VGT is concentrated. NVIDIA makes up 18.5% of the fund. Apple is 15.9%. Microsoft is 10.2%. Nearly half the fund is in 3 companies. That concentration is what drove those enormous returns, but it's also the risk. This is a growth engine, not a safety blanket. Fund number 6 is QQQM, the Invesco NASDAQ 100 ETF. QQQM tracks the exact same NASDAQ 100 index as QQQ. Same companies, same returns, but it charges 0.15% instead of 0.18%. For a buy-and-hold investor, QQQM is the smarter version. QQQ's extra liquidity only matters if you're trading options or moving millions. For the rest of us, QQQM saves money every single year. The NASDAQ 100 has returned roughly 22% per year over the last decade. Tech-heavy, growth-heavy, and a perfect complement to your dividend and broad market positions. 5 picks in and your portfolio covers the entire US market: growth, income, diversification, and technology. But there's a gap, and it's the one that protected investors during every major US downturn in the last 20 years. Plus, I saved the single highest performing ETF on this entire list for last.
The edge plays. Fund number 7 is VXUS, the Vanguard Total International Stock ETF. This one is a change from my original video 3 years ago. That version included VIGI, the Vanguard International Dividend Appreciation ETF. VIGI returned about 8% per year over the last decade. VXUS returned about 10% over the same period. It charges just 0.05% in fees, and it holds over 8,000 companies across 49 countries. More diversified, cheaper,
better performing. That's why I made the swap. When the US market dips, international exposure is your cushion. Not every country struggles at the same time. VXUS gives you that layer of protection. And now, the one you've been waiting for. Fund number 8 is SMH, the VanEck Semiconductor ETF. SMH has returned roughly 37% per year over the last 10 years. That makes it the single best performing non-leveraged ETF of the entire decade. Nothing else comes close. Semiconductors are the building blocks of every phone, every laptop, every data center, every AI model in the world. The demand is not slowing down. SMH holds 25 companies: NVIDIA, TSMC, Broadcom, AMD. The expense ratio is 0.35%, the highest on this list, at $35 per 10,000 per year. Now, I need to be honest with you. 37% per year sounds incredible, and it has been, but SMH is also the most volatile fund on this list. It swings hard in both directions. That's exactly why it's a satellite position, maybe 5 to 10% of your total portfolio, not the core. So here's where it all comes together. 8 ETFs. Each one plays a specific role. VOO and VTI are your foundation. RSP protects you from concentration. SCHD pays you growing income every quarter. QQQM and VGT are your growth engines. VXUS gives you the world outside America. And SMH is your high-octane satellite bet on the future of technology. Expense ratios across all 8 range from 0.03% to 0.35%. The cheapest costs you $3 a year per 10,000. The most expensive costs $35. No hidden fees, no complicated strategies, just proven funds with long track records. Random picks make random returns. A plan makes a portfolio. If someone you care about is still throwing money at random ETFs without a plan, send them this video right now. It could change how they invest for the rest of their life. I want to hear from you. If you could only hold 3 of these 8 forever, which 3 would you pick? Drop it in the comments. And if you're building long-term wealth and want to stay ahead of changes like SCHD's reconstitution and VGT's stock split, subscribe to this channel. I cover everything that protects and grows your money. Next up, I'm going to show you how to actually divide your dollars across these 8 ETFs with specific percentages based on your age. That one's coming soon.